Hi guys, welcome back to the Funbikes YouTube channel. I'm Finn and today I'm going to be showing you the assembly and build process of our new MXR 2000w Supermoto. So it can go from looking like this to this. Right, let's get this thing out of the box. So now I've got the bike out of the cage in the box, I'm now going to talk you through what parts came with it. So the first part you're going to receive is going to be your front wheel. You'll get your front axle with the two washers and a nut on the end, front mudguard. In this box you'll receive a lot more parts which I'll now run you through. So in your part box you'll receive number board, bar pad and bar pad cover, your charger, the wall plug for your charger, any nuts and bolts you'll need for this assembly, rear mud flap. You will receive your own toolkit in here, but if you have your own tools at home, I do recommend you use them. And finally, your manual, which I highly recommend you read through and make sure you understand clearly what it means and how it's going to help you. So guys, in your parts bag, I will now show you what comes in it and what they're for. So starting here on the left, you'll receive 4 bolts and 2 top clamps. Here you'll receive your rear shock bolt and your rear shock nut. Here you'll have 3 little 5mm Allen key bolts. These are for your front mudguard. And then here we've got our speed switch key. So for this assembly, the tools you're going to need are going to be a pair of wire cutters, a 6mm Allen key, a 5mm Allen key, a 4mm Allen key, a 13mm spanner, a 14mm spanner, and finally a 17mm spanner. So now we've got all of our parts and tools out of the boxes, we can now start our assembly process. So guys, now we can move on to the first part of the assembly process, which is going to be doing our handlebars. For this process, you're going to need a 6mm Allen key. You're also going to need your top clamp and your bolts. So the first step we're going to do, grab our handlebars, rest them behind the bottom clamps for now. Now you can grab one of your top clamp and 2 of your bolts, and you can rest the handlebars on the bottom clamps now. Then you can line up your top clamp on top of these grooves. So once that's lined up, place the top clamp on, put one of the bolts in, just by a few threads, same with the bottom one. Once that's on, it's going to keep the handlebars on for now. You can then grab your second top clamp and your last 2 bolts. So same as the right side, line it up, top clamp on, and the bolts in, a few threads. Once these are in loosely, we can now grab our 6mm Allen key, which I didn't have ready. Grab your 6mm Allen key. You want to make sure these are nice and tight. Now, once we've got all of the 4 of these bolts tight, you can give it a little test to make sure they're nice and tight. And with that, your first step of the assembly process is done, and we can now move on to the next part. So guys, moving on to the next part of the assembly, we're going to be assembling the rear shock and the rear mud flap. For this, you're going to need a 5mm Allen key, a 14 and a 13mm spanner. You'll also need your rear mud flap and your rear shock nut and bolt. So starting things off, you're going to want to grab your 5mm Allen key and remove these 2 bolts up here. And now you can grab your mud flap, but when you look at it, you can see this gap here missing. This side means it's going to be adjacent to the chain, so you don't want it this way because then the chain will be rubbing on this side. You want to make sure it's that way around. So now you can put one of those bolts back through the top hole, and again your 5mm Allen key, and you want to get this back up to the top and make sure they're nice and tight. And do the same with the second bolt. There we are. Now once they're tight, we can now move on to the rear shock. So you want to grab bolt and nut I just showed you. The shock is going to go through the mud flap there. So now we can lift up this rear wheel, making sure you've got a good grip of the bike so it doesn't fall over. And once they're lined up, you can now push it through like so and put the nut onto the other side. So now you can grab your 14 and 13mm spanner. Your 14 will be on the chain side, and the 13 will be this side. So again, you just want to make sure this is as tight as you can go, as this is quite an important component of your bike. So once all this is nice and tight, we can now move on to the next step. So guys, moving on to the next part of the assembly process, we're going to be assembling your front mudguard. For this, you're going to need 5mm Allen key and your 3 bolts from earlier, and obviously your front mudguard itself. So let's get to the front here, and as you can see up the top here, you'll see this hole, and this hole. These are where your bolts are going to go through, which should correlate to this hole here and the 2 at the back here. So we can grab our first bolt. I like to go for the middle one first, and we can get that in. You just want it finger tight for now. No need to go ham. And then we can line up the other 2. Again, just get them finger tight for now. Once they're all finger tight, we can then grab our Allen key. You can go around all 3 of them and get them nice and tight. So now you got all 3 of these bolts nice and tight. Your front mudguard is now installed. So guys, moving on to the next part of the assembly process, we're going to be attaching our front number board here. For this, you're going to need a 4mm Allen key and your front number board. So the first step is you're going to want to remove these 2 bolts here, like so. So now you can grab your number board, and what you're going to do is you're going to line up these 2 little knobbles here, and they'll slide into these 2 gaps here. So you want to make sure it goes behind the brake wire as well. Push down, avoiding any wires, like so. Should slot nicely. Try and get this in a few threads for now, like that. Same with the other side. And now, again, you can grab your 4mm Allen key. Make sure these are nice and tight. So now you've tightened these bolts. That is your front number board all assembled, and we can now move on to the next part of the assembly process. So guys, now we can move on to the next part of the assembly process, which is going to be our front wheel and our front brake. So for this, you're obviously going to need your front wheel. You'll also need a 17 and a 14mm spanner, a 5mm Allen key, and you'll need your front axle. So we can now move down to the front of the bike. Put our wheel down gently for now. So the first step we're going to do is going to remove this caliper, as it does just get in the way when trying to fit the front wheel. So you want to remove this bolt here, just put it on here for now so we don't lose them, and you want to remove this one. So now we've removed these 2 bolts, we can just move that out of the way for now. Now what we can do is you want to make sure your forks are nice and straight and in line, or as much as you can. So now you can grab your front axle. I'm going to take the nut off. You want to separate the 2 spaces, and as you can see, one is slightly bigger than the other. This one is the small one, this one is the big one. So you want to put your axle through just enough so that the spacer will cling on, like that. Once it's like that, you want to grab your front wheel, so watch out for the brake, and slide this through, also lining it up. And once it's lined, you want to push through the axle till you can see it come out the other end, but you don't want to go all the way through just yet. And now you can put your bigger spacer on, again, line it up, push through, and nut on the end. As simple as that. So now we can grab our spanners. This side here will be your 17mm and the other side will be your 14. And now you just want to make sure this is as tight as you can do. And once that's tight, we can now move back to our front brake. So in the front brake, you can see here, you have a little spacer. You just want to pull that out for now, pull it out, and you want to grab your 2 little bolts. And what we can do is you want to slide your caliper on and line up the top hole. That's lined up, you can then get the bolt in. Once that's on in, it makes it a bit easier to get the bottom on in. So again, line it up, grab your second bolt, and you can use your Allen key to help you with this bit. Makes it a bit less fiddly, but that's up to you, like so. So once they're in loosely, you can now make sure they're nice and tight. So now these 2 bolts are tight, you can now see your front brake and your front wheel are now all assembled. So guys, moving on to one of the more final steps of this assembly process, we're going to be attaching our bar pad and our bar pad cover. So nice and simple, take off the cover, rest it on the seat for now. This will just sit onto the top clamps, and then the bar pad cover, this Velcro bit, is going to slide through the front, around to the back, and it will then be met by the other half like so. It should look like this. Let's move on to the next one. Moving on to the next part of the assembly, guys. The next part is going to be our lever angles. So for this, you're only going to need 4mm Allen key. So on this side of the handlebar here, you'll see a little 4mm bolt. There'll be one on this side and on this side. So what you want to do, you just want to loosen off this bolt. So once it's loose enough, you should be able to twist it. Now this is all about personal preference or what level you want these. I normally go for about 30 degrees, nice and simplistic. And once you're happy with the lever angle, you can then tighten them back up. You're going to want to do this on this side as well. They should look like this. So guys, that's it. You've fully completed your assembly, but now you get to do my favorite part, peeling the stickers. So now, as you can see, we've got all the stick protectors off. There's one more thing you need to do before you can take this thing for a ride, and that's going to be a full nut and bolt check. But now I'm going to run you through all the bolts on the bike and show you which ones you need to check to make sure this is as safe as it can be. So starting at the rear of the vehicle, we're going to check your rear swing arm here. We're going to check the few bolts on the chain guard. You want to check this one for your kickstand. You've got this middle swing arm, your foot pegs, a few bolts around here. Check these screws here. You can move to the front. You can check your fork bolts. You can recheck your brake, your front axle. So now we've done the nut and bolt check on one half of the bike. I'm going to show you the other side of the bike. So on this side, you've got your rear brake caliper and your rear brake disc. Got your foot pegs. You've got some bolts here. You want to check these 2 screws here. You've got a few plastic bolts all around. Again, your fork bolts. So now we've fully assembled this bike and done a full nut and bolt check. We can now take this thing outside. So guys, this has been the assembly of our MXR 2000w Supermoto. I'm now going to run you through how to use this thing. So simply, 2 front brakes here, or the front and the rear should I say, your throttle here, you've got your on and off key, In here you've got your speed settings, so you've got response at the top, speed at the bottom. On the right side here, I'll spin it round, you've got another on and off switch. This gives it power, so if the key's on but that's up, you won't get any power. So guys, this has been the full assembly of our brand new MXR 2000w Supermoto. I hope I've been a helping hand today with this assembly process. If you do have any questions about the process today, then please leave a comment and I'll answer them as quick as I can. And before you take this thing for a ride, make sure you have the proper protective equipment on. You can find this in the link in our bio or in the description below. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.